If it's difficult is basically your go-to phrase for every hard situation in your life, from a tough exam to a rough breakup to a nightmare of a work project. Then you're using one flat word to describe about 100 completely different feelings. And today, we're gonna fix that.
Okay, that's fair because I do say it's difficult about literally everything. My job, my relationship, even trying to assemble furniture. It's all just difficult to me.
Right, and the problem isn't that the word is wrong, it's just that it's so general. It doesn't tell anyone whether you're stressed, overwhelmed, confused, or just plain exhausted. So today, we're giving you 7 much richer ways to talk about challenges.
I'm actually really excited for this one, so let's welcome everyone in properly before we dive in.
Absolutely. So, hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again. Whether this is your first episode with us or you've been here since the beginning, we're really happy you're spending this time with us today.
I'm Lily.
And I'm Sam, and today's topic is all about describing challenges, because life is full of them, and honestly, having better vocabulary for hard situations makes it so much easier to actually talk about what you're going through.
Exactly, and it's not just about sounding smarter, it's about being able to actually express what you mean instead of just defaulting to the same tired phrase every time.
Perfectly said. So let's jump straight into number 1, and this phrase is great for situations that require a lot of mental effort. This is really demanding.
I like this one because it specifically points to effort. Like, it's not just hard in a vague way, it's hard because it requires a lot from you, mentally or physically.
Exactly. Imagine you're studying for a huge exam, and instead of just saying it's difficult, you say this is really demanding, which shows that it's taking a lot of your time and energy, not just that it's confusing.
That's such a good distinction because demanding almost sounds a little more respectable too, like you're working hard, not just struggling.
Right. It actually sounds a little more impressive, like you're handling something serious, rather than just complaining that something is too hard.
All right, number 2, and this one is perfect for situations involving emotions. This is emotionally exhausting.
Oh, this phrase is so useful because it specifically points to the emotional side of a challenge rather than just the mental or physical side.
Exactly. Imagine you're dealing with a difficult family situation or supporting a friend through a hard time. Instead of saying it's difficult, you could say this is emotionally exhausting, which really captures that specific kind of tiredness.
I actually went through something like that last year when my grandmother was in the hospital for a few weeks, and honestly, it's difficult never felt like enough to describe it, but emotionally exhausted really captured how drained I felt every single day.
That's such a real example, and I think a lot of our listeners can probably relate to that feeling too, when something isn't physically hard, but it completely drains you anyway.
Exactly, and that's the whole point of today's episode, giving you the right words for the right kind of hard.
All right, number 3, and this phrase works great for confusing situations. I'm finding this really overwhelming.
This one is perfect for moments when there's just too much happening at once, too much information, too many tasks, or too many decisions to make.
Right, imagine you just started a new job and there's so much new information coming at you all at once. Instead of saying, it's difficult, you could say, I'm finding this really overwhelming, which shows that the issue is the amount of things happening, not necessarily the difficulty of any one task.
That's such an important distinction because sometimes something isn't complicated, there's just too much of it at the same time.
Exactly, and honestly, overwhelming is one of those words that instantly makes people understand your situation, because almost everyone has felt that way at some point in their lives.
All right, number 5, and this phrase is great for long-term struggles. This has been a real struggle for me.
I love this one because it sounds a little more personal and honest. It's not just describing the situation, it's describing your relationship with the situation over time.
Exactly. Imagine you're trying to learn a new language and it's been months of slow progress. Instead of saying it's difficult, you could say this has been a real struggle for me, which shows persistence and effort over time, not just a temporary problem.
That phrase also feels a little more vulnerable, like you're being honest about something that's genuinely been hard for you, rather than just casually mentioning a small inconvenience.
Right, and vulnerability like that actually helps people connect with you more because everyone has struggled with something at some point in their lives.
Before we move on to number 5, let's take a quick second because if you're enjoying this episode so far, hitting that subscribe button on Mr. English Today genuinely helps us keep making these lessons every single week.
Seriously, it takes just a couple of seconds and it makes a real difference for a channel like ours. So thank you if you've already subscribed, and if you haven't, now's a great time to do it.
All right, moving on to number 5. And this phrase works great for situations that are frustrating because of obstacles. There are so many obstacles in the way.
This one is perfect for situations where the challenge isn't really about your ability. It's about external things blocking your progress, like paperwork, rules, or unexpected problems.
Right. Imagine you're trying to start a small business and there's so much bureaucracy, permits, and paperwork involved. Instead of saying it's difficult, you could say there are so many obstacles in the way, which really paints a clearer picture of what's actually happening.
That's such a good example because it shows that the difficulty isn't necessarily about you personally, it's about the situation itself being complicated.
Exactly. And that distinction really matters because sometimes people blame themselves for something that's genuinely just a complicated system, not a personal failure.
All right, number 6, and this phrase is great for situations that require patience. This is testing my patience.
I love this one. It's honestly a little funny too, because it's so relatable, especially with certain situations that just seem to drag on forever.
Exactly. Imagine you're dealing with a slow internet connection while trying to finish an important task. Instead of saying it's difficult, you could say this is really testing my patience, which perfectly captures that specific feeling of frustration mixed with waiting.
That reminds me of something that happened to me recently, actually. I was on hold with customer service for almost 2 hours trying to fix a billing issue, and by the end, I kept thinking, this is really testing my patience.
Honestly, 2 hours on hold would test anyone's patience. That's such a relatable example for basically everyone listening right now.
It really is, and that's exactly the kind of situation this phrase was made for.
All right, and finally, number 7, our last phrase, and honestly, one that captures a very specific kind of challenge. I'm out of my comfort zone with this.
I really like this one because it shows that the challenge isn't necessarily about the task being objectively hard, it's about it being unfamiliar or new to you specifically.
Exactly. Imagine you're asked to give a big presentation in front of a large audience, and public speaking has never been your strength. Instead of saying it's difficult, you could say, I'm out of my comfort zone with this, which shows self-awareness about your own personal limits.
That's such a mature way to describe a challenge because it's honest without sounding like you're making excuses.
Exactly. And honestly, everyone experiences moments like that, where something might be easy for someone else, but genuinely challenging for you specifically, and that's completely normal.
All right, let's do a quick recap because repetition really helps these phrases stick, especially since a few of them are a little more detailed than usual.
We covered 7 richer ways to talk about challenges. This is really demanding. This is emotionally exhausting. I'm finding this really overwhelming. This has been a real struggle for me. There are so many obstacles in the way. This is testing my patience. And finally, I'm out of my comfort zone with this.
And honestly, if you start using even 2 or 3 of these phrases, people are going to understand your situation so much more clearly instead of just hearing the same vague word over and over.
So here's a question for all of you listening. Which of these 7 phrases best describes something you're currently dealing with in your own life? Let us know in the comments because we would genuinely love to hear your answers.
And if this episode helped you even a little bit today, do us a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with a friend who's currently going through something hard themselves.
That's it for today's episode, everyone. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and for taking the time to learn something that could genuinely help you express yourself better.
Take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves through whatever challenges you're facing, and we'll see you in the next episode.